I'm gonna say something that I think a lot of people are probably well aware of already. And that's that I think the freedom you have to play the game being Persona 5, the freedom you have to play Persona 5 kind of jeopardizes what the ending could have been. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, it's 2:30 in the morning. I just finished Persona 5 Royal. So at this point, I have put 90 hours into a vanilla playthrough of the game, which I did on accident because I didn't know how to get the Royal part. I didn't realize I had to do the whole Confidant bullshit. And then another 90 hours into the Royal part. A separate playthrough, which included Maruki's Palace. So that's 180 hours I put into Persona 5 Royal. About 20 minutes ago, I just finished the ending. And I don't even know if I can describe with words the mixed feelings I have about it. Because it definitely feels conclusive, but at the same time, I feel like I'm missing so much. Like, I just feel like I don't know. There's so much that I, like, wish Persona 5 could have done, right? Because as it is, it's a really nicely told story. It's a really fun game. And I love the characters, and the message it sends is very applicable to real life, and it's just got so many good things about it. And then I just feel like the experience with the story being as free to the individual as it is kind of jeopardizes the ending, right? Because the ending is just so blech. It's so vague. It's just like kind of very minimalist, I guess, is the word I would use. Like, it leaves a lot up to interpretation, and if you would even call it that. There's so many things that I don't like about it, but also simultaneously a lot of stuff that is good about it. And I think because players are so free to choose how they interact with the game, like, you could go through the entirety of Persona 5 and theoretically you probably wouldn't do very well for yourself, but without really getting too far into any of the confidants at all. So you could play through the entire game just fucking working at the fucking flower shop for ages and ages on end, and then not doing anything, not getting involved with the confidants or anything like that. And then on the other side, you could also max the fuck out of them, you know, end up with that horrible Valentine's Day bullshit, and then, like, you've delved super deep into the characters' feelings and backstories and all that nonsense. And then, because that's kind of the route that I took. The route that I took was more getting involved with the characters, prioritizing them as opposed to just, you know, fishing or whatever. And the ending is the same no matter which way you go, right? So no matter whether, like, how involved or not you get with the characters, it doesn't change the actual ending. So because of that, I feel like the ending feels unsatisfying in a way, and the goodbyes at the end don't really help because it's kind of just reaffirming what we already knew about the characters. So, like, in Ann's case, for example, Best Girl, she's just like, I'm gonna do better with my modeling career, I'm gonna see Shiho from time to time, and I'm gonna, you know, work towards my dreams. Yuji's getting back on the fucking track team. You don't even get to say bye to Sumire. She's just doing gymnastics practice or whatever. Like, it just reaffirms what you already knew about all of the characters and, like, the little arcs they go through as you interact with them. So they don't really, like, help conclude the story, and it's also, like, because of that, like, because you have so many different characters to get involved with, it also just feels like a lot of the arcs aren't really fleshed out. They're just kind of, like, very to the point and minimalist. Like, you just kind of, they only have a very small amount of, like, actual time that goes by, but as they change thanks to their interaction with the protagonist. And then because you can get however involved or not with all the different characters, it doesn't change the ending. So the ending thereby, like, logically, if you're playing this game, the ending by default has to be under the assumption, or at least like it would have to be up in the air, or like vague to the point where it would be applicable whether or not you got involved with the characters, right? So like it doesn't feel like I really saw through a lot with any of these characters, because it's so just black. It's just so nothing, right? Because it has to be a solid ending whichever way you decide to play the game as the player. And don't even get me started on like the whole, you know, protagonist who doesn't really talk that much and just kind of says all the fucking time, and that's about his only noise that ever comes out of his mouth. Like, it's just too much. Like, I would much prefer a protagonist who's actively, you know, at least like more interactive with the story, to the point where I feel like they're affecting the characters positively, and not just like watching them change or like observing it as it happens. And like, because of Joker's player-driven nature, like he's whatever the player wants him to be, the arcs that the characters go through as Joker interacts with them have to be simple enough to the point where they could still be considered character arcs while they interact with a character who doesn't really speak and only has a very set number of dialogue choices that are all essentially the same and lead to the same conclusion. Because I feel like so many good protagonists are good because you, like in manga for example, like so many good protagonists are good because you get to see them actively interact with the other characters and see how they affect the other characters in the story, the other important characters in the story. And because of that, you learn their nature, like you learn what people like about them, like how they have come to accept themselves and how they've come to accept others and how others come to accept them. Like, there's a lot that, like, a good protagonist in a story, it is a make or break thing, right? Like, for example, if you've seen the community tab recently, I've been reading One Piece. Luffy by no means is like some incredibly designed protagonist, right? He's a fucking dork, and but that in itself is kind of a genius move because it feels like it's very One Piece. But just like the way Luffy's absolutely unbreakable confidence rubs off on a lot of the other characters, especially the other Straw Hats, it makes you involved with the story because you have a protagonist who's with the characters and you understand their interactions, and like it just works. For Joker, it just, I don't feel that with him because he could interact no matter like any way you want him to, and then because of that, it just feels like the story doesn't conclude the way I wanted it to as someone who wanted to get involved with the characters. Like, I don't know what I was expecting, because like my first accidental vanilla playthrough, I was like, oh man, I can't wait to see what's going to happen with Sumire, like, because I didn't know, I knew she was really Sumire, but I didn't know how or why. But I knew that Kasumi was really Sumire, and I was like, oh man, I can't wait to figure out why that is. And then you kind of just go through it and it's like, oh, okay, well, then that's done. Cool, she's Sumire now. She's gonna do gymnastics anyway. Whoop-de-fucking-do, right? Like, it wasn't like it was bad. It was just like, oh, so that's it. Huh, I don't know why I got so worked up over that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I don't know if it's me building it up in my head, like saying, oh man, this is gonna be so cool, like hyping myself up for it, when I shouldn't have been expecting much in the first place, or if it's just it let me down. Because either way, I feel let down. I don't know how to explain this. And like the ending is like, whatever, you see like the fucking Akechi's uniform, it's like, oh, it's Akechi! But like you also see Joker's mask, so like why is the metaverse around still? I mean, Persona 5 Strikers happened, so yeah, maybe. But like, bleh, bleh. It's just, I don't like that the ending, like, it made me so mad. Like, I romanced the fuck out of Sumire. She's adorable. I hate the ending where she just bumps into her, and like, the only thing she says is, "Oh, you taught me to keep my head up, right?" And she gives him a smile and bows, and then fucking walks away. That's their last interaction? Like, after all we've been through, that's all I get. And fucking Maruki's a taxi driver? Like, if your life goes south, you can always start over like me and become a taxi driver. Which, by the way, will barely pay your living expenses. You will have no disposable income. Like, blech. I don't, like, it doesn't feel like I beat a game that I put 180 hours into, even 90 hours into. It doesn't feel like I beat a game like that. Because there's so much good stuff. I love the way Akechi's arc progresses and like him working alongside the Phantom Thieves during Maruki's alternate reality and all that nonsense. I thought that was super cool. Akechi is like, honestly, like my whole opinion on him's done a complete 180 since my first playthrough, but yeah, it's like I just, for all like the time I put into it, I don't feel like I got rewarded for it, you know, because everybody's individual's playthrough of Persona 5 is completely different. Like, you know, the core elements are the same, of course, but like a lot of the stuff around that is totally different, and it's just like, and so the ending has to apply to every single one, and there's like an infinite number of possibilities you could end up with playthroughs, and like, it's just too much. Like, I feel like that jeopardizes, like, that freedom jeopardizes, like, what the story could have been. Like, I almost feel like I would have rather watched it happen in the form of, like, an anime or a manga. And I know the Persona 5 animation is a thing, but apparently the visuals suck dick. So, I'm gonna watch it, but, like, I don't even know. I mean, I say that. My webcam right now is literally stacked on 5 volumes of the Persona 5 manga. Just wanted more. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's because there's so many characters and, like, you can't put a bunch of time into every single one of them. I get it. And not all of them needed a bunch of time. Like, I think what you did with fucking Yoshida, that's my boy right there. I fucking love Yoshida. Like, I think Oya and Chihaya and like a lot of the external ones are really good, but like when you comes down to like a lot of your teammates, feels like I was kind of let down. Like in terms of like what they could have been, right? Because like when you boil it down, it almost feels like a lot of them are defined by one character trait, right? Or like maybe a couple. Like you could define them in a sentence, right? Like for Ryuji, he's a guy who made a scene and got injured on the track team, but wants to start running again. It like got discouraged from running, but wants to start running again. And because he got kicked out of the track team, he became a delinquent and dyed his hair. And like for Ann, it's like she's an up-and-coming model whose best friend attempted suicide and now wants to do modeling to give courage to the people who need it, like her best friend needed it when she attempted. You know, like you can describe these people in one sentence. Like, I just feel like it could have been more than that, right? I don't know. I do feel let down. It's like, cause like, I don't feel like the ending was bad, but there's so much I wish it could have been. Does that make sense? Like, it's a fitting ending for a game where it's like filled with so much mystery and uncertainty, but I don't know. I just wanted more out of it. Like, I can't help but feel a little bit disappointed. Like, especially the thing with Sumire, it makes me angry. Like, What do you mean that was my last interaction with her? What do you mean I'm never gonna fucking see her again? She didn't even show up in Strikers. Why am I even here? Like, yeah, my first playthrough of Persona 5 started at the beginning of last year. Started playing around January, February, with no spoilers or anything like that, which is why I didn't end up getting the Royal content, because I was like, why the fuck do I need to talk to Dr. Maruki? He seems like a tool. And so yeah, I ended up starting from the beginning on that, because a lot of that first run was kind of garbage. But I just wanted more out of it, I guess. I mean, like, even Strikers just feels like, you know, I almost considered making a bit on this, like a short or whatever. But the story for Persona 5 Strikers feels like the same writers for, like, the vanilla Persona 5, like, got together at a Denny's, like, they rented out a Denny's for, like, a whole weekend, and just stayed up for 48 hours straight, writing, like, an alternate version, like, you know, one of those stupid spin-off stories to Persona, because it's, like, it's a lot of the same exact shit, but, like, there's enough different about it to justify Striker's existence. It's got a good enough story going for it, and enough different stuff, but, like, when it rounds out and it's fucking, like, it's got, like, fucking the god, it's like, oh, I'm the god of control. It's like, this is the same shit we did in the fucking first one. Like, I don't know. It just feels like they got together at, like, a Denny's and wrote the story in 48 hours, and then we're just like, alright, we're done. Here you go. We've done our part. You guys have fun. And they delayed the game or whatever. But yeah, just the way the ending has to fit, no matter how you play the game. I just feel let down by it, you know. As someone who, like, put a lot of time into getting to know the characters, and I mean, even, like, in the Royal ending, where, like, we drive up to the fucking train station with Maruki in the fucking taxi, and then the guys come over and the girls in the van, and they're just like, oh, this is your stop? Okay, we're out of here. Like, who are they even getting chased by? That didn't get explained. I guess it was the police or whatever, but, like, they were getting chased by somebody, and then it just ends. Like, they just leave. They're just like, oh, this is your stop? Okay, later, and then they just leave, and that's it. I hope I got my point across. I do. How do I even end this video? Maybe this is what edging feels like. So I feel like I'm getting blue-balled, but at the same time I'm about to come. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'm about to conclude, but, like, I'm at the same time, I'm still so far away from concluding. I'm gonna go to r/edging. Is that a thing?